So you're probably wondering what happened to the rest of the video. That's a really good question. You see, without any reason to think otherwise, and probably everyone knows this by this point, Square decided that as of Chapter 18 would be the moment they decide to enforce the no recording clause, apparently. And so descended from the heavens to swallow it all with their anus. I'm unhappy about that. One, you could make the argument, well, yes, it's a big spoiler and they want to hold that back. Fair. Not the entire chapter fair, but fair. One could also argue, hey, those spoilers are already out there. And they are. In fact, it's almost impossible not to hear about them if you have internet. So, kind of a moot point? Maybe not, maybe so. I'm not gonna sit here and debate it for too long. It's, I had to take a few moments away to stop being angry about it. I'm not throwing shit across the room, having a moment kind of thing. But the fact that they did that, and they did that to such an extent, was bothersome. And in part, I think it speaks to a problem that a lot of RPGs have, and why they don't quite get the love they deserve from, you know, people that want to make videos that want to share a game that they enjoy with others. And say whatever you want about me. Honestly, I've probably said it myself, but what's the big point of doing this for me? Maybe it turns into something, maybe it doesn't, but this is something I enjoy. This atmosphere where you can do something you love and share it with others, and they can experience it too. And that's what I want most. I want people to experience something with me, to enjoy something I'm enjoying. Now, ideally, they see what I'm doing. And again, this is less literal me and more me as a representation, because there are others out there, most certainly probably far better at this than I will ever be, who are doing the same. They're sharing experiences, and in doing so, I know that there are times I've written off a game and seen actual footage, actual story, and gone, that's interesting. I'm okay, maybe I'll give this a shot. And it hasn't always worked out, but you know what? I still don't regret doing it. In fact, there's only one game I've ever regretted buying, and it's also the one game I sold that I don't have a remake, a remaster, or some other copy of. I'm very easy to please. So that whole thing irked me. And it's hard not to be irked, especially, maybe I'm an idiot for not realizing it earlier, but when there finally seems to be an RPG that isn't dropping this on me every cutscene, I had no idea it was coming. but that is what it is. Being angry at them for trying to do what they thought was the correct thing is stupid. Continuing to be mad over it is stupid, and the only way things like that change is if enough people say something to the point that it gets through someone else. That's it. Otherwise, I have no means of making them, obviously. I could try to get around it, but I have neither the money nor the extra time to make that effort. So, sadly, this is not where I wanted to end this particular series, but that's what it is. This is an ending. Now, if it ever comes to a point where Square undoes that, and I can come back, and I can film it and run through that, and I promise you, I will make every effort to make it entertaining. I will absolutely do that. I will say, I'm definitely going to play through the game again. So I have no issue doing that in particular. I was simply bothered by how it happened so suddenly and the length to which it happened. That said, there was one thing I intended to do, and by good goddamn, I'm still going to do it. And that is to give you my opinion based on the things I liked and didn't like on this game. Okay? So, that at some point is probably going to involve the story spoilers. Also, that might be me being a little bit petty and spiteful. I don't know. I do know, but I don't care. So, if for any reason whatsoever you don't know what's coming and you want to save it for yourself, or you've seen the game so far and you're like, hey, I want to play that, I want to see it for myself, I want to be surprised. Stop now. Stop now. Come back later, in fact. Please, I'm lonely. But pause it now, step away, go do yourself the favor, and play this game. Because whatever else I might say, however else I might have acted or played up during the course of the game, this is me being genuine at this point. And I cannot recommend this game enough. My complaints, and no game is perfect, mind you. No game. My complaints can all be leveled to minor inconveniences or annoyances. And not that many of them. And for a game, that's pretty damn good, I think. When I can look at it and say, I enjoyed this without having to screw around like I do in the Batman games sometimes and just make some random thug's life a living hell for half an hour just because it tickles me in a tickle place. So, straight out of the gate, if you haven't played it and you're interested, do yourself the favor and go buy it. I guarantee you, you will have fun if you've enjoyed even a little bit of this. Okay? That said, let's talk about the good things I liked. And that's going to reference what I experienced playing the original way back when, and actually not too long ago, thanks to it being on PSN, which, if you ever want to compare the two, do it. So, okay, let's talk the change in combat from turn-based to action. You've seen Square kind of moving towards this, really with a lot of their last couple major games. Nier is a lot more fluid, mind you, and I would put it at a better scale than this. But you can see its influence here. You can see it in Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts. Any RPG they've had an action element in has been a slow build and refining what they do with it and how it should affect gameplay. And I like that. It's very refined here. It takes a moment to get used to, especially if you're coming from another action RPG at this point. I mentioned briefly during playing that I had been playing Kingdom Hearts 3 as well. And it kind of jars you a bit, throwing you off, but it's super easy to get into, and more than that, you can play through it like you would any other RPG. It may not be turn-based, but it's not difficult. What works in its favor, however, is that you can play it as simply as you want, or you can get real involved with it. From comboing to countering to specific setups to bring out the inner beast of Tifa and watch her destroy God and creation itself. And that's amazing. That speaks to a wide range of gamers, I think, and to that end, it's a damn good move on their part. I gave the comparison, I thought Nier was more fluid. Nier is more action game than RPG, and this is more RPG than action game. So I can't give you a one-to-one comparison there. They're slightly different styles, but that difference is actually important instead of just a technicality. So, yeah. In that, I am super pleased in that regard, and it can take some of the frustration away from turn-based RPGs because you're active in it. You have to pay attention, at least if you're playing on normal mode or hard. So they did an extremely good job there. They made a lot of things available. They made a lot of little changes. Materia being a huge example of that, for good and for ill. Summons, I love that feature. Obviously, again, you see influence from Final Fantasy 15 here, and seeing summons actually as combatants, even if temporary ones, coming in and just raining hellfire on enemies, it's fantastic. I enjoy it visually. I enjoy it tactically. It makes them more than spells, and since their inception, that's what they've been. And you can argue any little technicality you want there, but they've just been really powerful spells, and sometimes not even really powerful. So seeing them now is great. Seeing how they've changed, how they can influence a battle properly is great. I like how do I put it? The sense of progression in weapons. Not only do you get them, and it's not perfect, mind you. Barrett is the one you see the major flaws in because he's absent a chunk of the game, and then you get two weapons for him that aren't really to his play style. But that aside, the progression of weapons is generally, this is when I need it. This is a cool thing it does. It gives me an ability which I really liked. I'm a just big old nerd for things like that in RPGs, where equipment gives you something from using it. Even if it's a small thing, it's still something you've earned and you can use down the road. I like that they're all kind of differently geared towards certain things, and it helps you play the way you want. And that's a huge thing again. I really like the story. Surprise. Yeah, no. No one's going to ever argue Final Fantasy VII, the original story, was the end-all be-all. I'm sorry, it never was, it never will be. And that's because it focused mainly on the party, almost purely on the party itself, and there were holes. There were things that just either came out of the blue, or were done poorly, or weren't conveyed as well. And that is not knocking the writers so much as realizing at the time that's just how it was going to be, because you have translation issues, you have things you have to cut, things you have to improve upon, things you have to make relatable for your audience, and you don't have the same tools and benefits that you do now, where voice actors can read a line and put emotion into it. And my God, I cannot say anything better about the game than the voice actors. You all did a fantastic job. Even when they were being goofy, I loved the characters. I liked listening to them. Aerith always had that little bit of mischief in her voice. Tifa, you could actually feel the concern in her. You could... And Barrett, Barrett goes from being a paranoid bastard to being just an incredibly big-hearted person. And even Cloud, who in his original portrayal, that's a word, see, I can word sometimes, in his original portrayal came off aloof and kind of a fuckboy. I'm going to be completely honest. He has always been cold, and it didn't come off correctly, and he just seemed more like an asshole for 90% of the game. Until he got better, and then he's still kind of an asshole. But it doesn't matter then, because his lines aren't as prevalent or common. But here, the character growth, the voice actors, the oomph they put into it really makes it interesting. I could have liked a few more lines from post-combat dialogue, but I get that, you know, not everything can be perfect either. So, they really meant the term remake in this. It wasn't a half-assed job that you will get with some others, or a bare focus on the elements of the original, like in some others, but a true, honest-to-God remake in every sense. And for that, and for the potential that has in the future games, even if they follow some of the same story and still have changes, as long as they don't hit the Final Fantasy XIII stride of, oh yeah, we're going to defy fate, but it accomplishes absolutely nothing when we run in and do exactly what we want, and it's exactly what fate intended. That annoyed the hell out of me. And an otherwise okay to decent RPG that got a lot of crap for some of the things it did, like being more linear, like this is. I don't mind linear in a game. I don't. If you have a story to tell, if you have something to convey, and the best way to do that is to be linear, then friggin' do it. I'm not so entitled to think every RPG needs to be epic open world. Sometimes you just want the story. And if the game is fun, that will follow. And this, I think, accomplishes that. The mini games, which I touched on before, they're not to the level of insanity that I'm used to from Final Fantasy games. They're not absurdly hard. They're not impossible. They're not, let's just be stupid and see how many players have a stroke. They're not always the best, but they're not the worst thing about the game either, and almost all of them are entirely optional. So, that speaks to them actually being considerate of people playing it instead of, I just want to have them do like 1,000 jump rope skips, and yeah, no, fuck that. Fuck that so hard. The only thing I hated worse was the lightning planes from Final Fantasy X. Holy shit, fuck Lulu. I mean, I like her, but just at the same time, fuck her ultimate weapon, fuck doing all that, fuck those parts of the games. There's a spider on my wall. Pardon me for like 5 seconds. I hate spiders. I hate them so much. Anyway. I need to burn the house down. Okay. So let's get to the annoyances I had with it. There is a lack of agency about your character growth that I'm not a huge fan of. They try and replace it with the weapons all being geared towards certain builds. That's fine. That does a part of it. But I don't... That affects primarily your outward attack functions, not your defense, not your speed, not anything like that. Only with Tifa, actually, with speed. I can give her that. It was in Final Fantasy VII, the original, materia would affect your stat growth to an extent. It would also have items that could change your stats. And that may be good or bad. That may be towards, oh, I want to break the game capacity, whatever. All I know is changing my attack stat is not a huge deal in regards to letting me do what I want. It's a minor thing generally because I'm going to do what I want regardless. But I feel like I have less control over how my character grows. If I want Barrett to be a goddamn proper tank, I want him to have more than HP. I want him to have higher defense. I want him to have higher magical defense. And if I threw things on him that focus entirely on that, and he suffers in other areas, that's entirely the point. Entirely the point. That's player agency to do what you want. I'm not a fan of when they take agency away from the player. It's why I would get annoyed when the game would show me something and I would start to walk towards it, and then a minute later, which is its own annoyance, it would say, oh no, you can't go that way. Well, why the hell make it an option in the first place? But that's kind of a separate point. But they lead in well together. If I'm going to do something, I want to do it all the way. I want to explore. I want to do my bits. Yes, it's linear. Yes, I'm okay with that. But if there's a doorway here and there's obviously a room behind it and it's on the way, why not? Or why make a large looping section that I could go down and explore, and then I get 2 minutes down the damn thing and it throws me back? Just tell me in the first place it can't go that way. It makes it a lot easier. And I'm like, okay, fine, we'll do that. That's whatever. That... it ruins your immersion a bit. And it comes out of nowhere half the time because it looks like you ought to be able to do a thing. And if you can't do the thing, then don't make it look like you can do the thing. I'm also not huge on the equipment in the game. Most of the accessories are garbage. They're not worth much. They don't do much. And there's even some that are counterproductive to getting anything done unless you just want to prove you can go in as a goddamn frog and kill enemies. The armor is terrible. It speaks to my problem design-wise with equipment overall. They're trying to cookie-cutter things. You have it has so many materia slots that it can't have defense or magic defense. And that makes it garbage because it doesn't matter how much materia I put on it. If I get hit and I fold like a goddamn grandma falling down some stairs, it's not a whole lot of use to me now, is it? If the mediocre armor, where it's not too, not too strong, not too weak, is your best option, you're not doing it right. If your strongest armor isn't doing enough to protect you from obviously mixed attacks you're getting through all out the game, what the hell is the point of it being powerful if you're still getting your shit whipped by the other half of it? There's no, okay, this is more powerful than what we have special armor. There's no, I can grind this off the enemies or steal it off enemies, which is another issue entirely. There's no unique properties to it. There's no, like, there's no, oh, it absorbs this element naturally, or it prevents this thing naturally, or putting weapons as an example. Well, the house sword that's on fucking fire to begin with. Like, I don't need to put elemental on it. It's just on fire. Like, Jesus said, nope, fire. Could I put element on it? Hell yes, that would be amazing. Dual element. Naturally. You don't have to make it super powerful, but doing unique things with equipment is what makes equipment memorable and what makes people seek it out and spend more time in the game. Not just for completion's sake, but because, hey, it can actually be useful. I felt there was a distinct lack of focus on certain things in the game as well. And this, again, is talking mechanically. Materia-wise, steel was pointless. Giving us the steel materia was absolutely goddamn pointless. There was one enemy, one, that had something we couldn't get anywhere else, and it was a boss. You could just as easily made it part of its loot pool and had it drop normally. Otherwise, the closest you came was the Reno and Rude fight where you could steal next level armor off them. And even then, not that great. Enemy skill. Whew! You get 4 skills off that, and one of them you can only get through hard mode. Boy, yeah, no, it's really... Should have that slotted all the time, shouldn't I? Because it will really come in handy. No. Or a bevy of other small annoying things. The limited access to what was basically the replacement for all materia in this game. The AI not attacking generally as often as it should, and this was particularly noticeable when you would get summons, which, for as amazing as they are, don't get used as often as you would like, just to benefit from the visual, the fun of it. Like, there are hard fights you get, and then you can't summon like 3 or 4 different ones because it's friggin' indoors. So that's something they need to work on. And honestly, if they are going to keep summons, they need to refine the way they're doing it right now to the extent that they did with like weapons. SP, where you can modify your weapon and do that, and it'll be, you can add effects to it and do all this and that. Do it with summons. Do it so you can improve them over time. So I have Ifrit still from this game going into the next one. How do I make him compete with brand new summons? Easy. Give him growth somehow. Give the ability to modify him, to make him stronger, to new attacks, to doing this or that. Tighten the AI up. Because I love that aspect. I love being able to add more to your stuff. And for the most part, it helped with my annoyance, at least as far as the weapons went, with not having much that makes them stand out. But generally those effects are also universal, so it's nothing that you can't get on a different character, or you wouldn't have to use it if you were going to be playing on normal mode, or it's a lot of little things. That's it. Oh yeah, fuck the pull-up game. Disappearing commands is just a pain in the ass already, and that you're making it that does not help. I also find a majority of the side quests weren't worthwhile. And I don't mean worthwhile in the rewarding sense, because you get new weapons, which are mostly okay for what you have. You sometimes get materia or useful items, but by and large they don't add anything to the story. They don't really compel. They're not interesting to do. They're a checklist thing you do because you want X thing from them. And the only time I can say otherwise where it really felt like I should have recorded it was the fight with the behemoth, because whoo-hoo, that was just cool. So that's about 30 minutes of me ranting, so let's kick it off with the story. Final warning, by the way. So, the idea that they're changing their fates, and they're not subtle about it. They're not subtle about fighting different versions of yourselves at the end. They're not subtle about Sephiroth having some fucking plan about this and somehow knowing about it, or that Aerith is doing geese-like shenanigans to either stop him from altering or trying to alter, I don't know, her fate? Zack's fate? Did she set the whole event in motion somehow? And if so, how? You have a lot more questions than answers, especially if you played the original game. And in part, I'm interested in see where they go with it, as I said before. At other times, it's just like, what? What? Why? What? Oh, there are Dementors. And seriously, I hate those things. They are a terrible plot device. They show up just to be a wall that you would otherwise not have. And some of the stuff they do doesn't make any sense. Suddenly you're outside again instead of just on the ground. So they went from mile blocks to actually lifting you out on your dainty ass and laying you on the ground. Cool. I love that they put more effort into making you interested in the NPCs, giving you time with them, giving you backstory on them. Jesse and Biggs, Wedge, Invincible Cathead. Things like that. I think they also might have gone a little too far with toying with the whole, is Wedge going to live? Is he not? Is he going to die? There's only so many times you can dangle a character in front of someone and pull that trope and it not get annoying. Now, do I want him to be alive? Yes, because god damn it, he earned it at that point, even though he was an idiot going into a building he had no cause to be in. Am I happy Biggs is alive? Yes, even missing the arm. Maybe he'll get some cool bro code bullshit from Barrett. Who knows? Now, does that mean Jessie's alive? I didn't see her. If I missed that somehow, could someone tell me? Because If that's confirmation, great. If not, that scene alone puts into question her fate. So, again, it's nice if they're alive at this point, and I'm all for that. A whole change of destiny type thing. The whole let's shoot for the good ending. I'm okay with that. It's also okay to let characters die. It's not okay to keep playing the will they or won't they card. There's only so many times it's effective, and there's only so many times it just doesn't become a disgusting emotional grab. Where it goes next, I have the slightest fucking clue. Not the fucking least. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that it's not going to be more than 3 games collectively. Why? Because you're talking, if it maintains the playtime of this, 120 hours. And I'm sorry, there's few games that I can play 120 hours of and still want to come back to it later. The New Game Plus helps a huge amount with that. But at a certain point, you have to ask yourself, am I padding too much? Is it asking too much? Especially, 1, at that price. 2, because you know people are going to be pissed about that to begin with. They already are pissed about that. And to an extent, I can't blame them. But I will say this, while it is not the complete game, while it's not the complete story, it is a finished game. There we go. It is part of a whatever-ology at this point, because we don't know. And like any good book series, in of itself is a finished, complete product. Chapter in it's one book in a series, and I'm okay with that. I want more of that if it means you get a good finished product, and this is by and large a good finished product. Now, if it goes on for 4, I'm going to start questioning whether I want to continue to invest into it. Because at a certain point, you're going to have to deal with not just price, not just interest, but we're looking at a new generation of consoles before too long. And at a certain point, it runs into Borderlands pre-sequel issues, where this should have been released on the new generation, and it's not going to get the attention it deserves, because if it doesn't release on there, no one's going to pay as much attention. No one's going to be as excited. Meanwhile, there are going to be people who played this, the first part of it, and will be like, how's that going to affect my playthrough of that? If I have to switch and buy a brand new goddamn console to be able to play it. So there's multiple issues there. But all in all, I am excited for what's to come. I'm willing to invest in it and see where it goes for at least one more game. And really, at this point, there's not much more to say about it. It's all up in the air. And my cat is yelling at me because he is worried about Wedge, apparently. So, that in mind, folks, this is just my opinion. If you agree with it, if you find you have a similar taste as me, great. If you don't and you think I'm an idiot, that's fine too. I say that on most days anyways. But it is what it is. Phrase you probably hear a lot from me. What matters is if you can enjoy it, or if watching it you feel like you want to give it a chance. And again, I recommend you do. So that in mind, even if this isn't how I wanted things to end, it is an ending for now. And with that, folks, I want to thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed Final Fantasy VII Remake. And like I said, if it ever comes a chance I can get around it some way, sometime, or they do what I would hope would be the kindness they do for their fans and stop blocking the damn scene, I will come back to it. So, that in mind, I really do hope you all have enjoyed. As for our next games, we're going to be looking at a weekday schedule. Ideally, I want my weekends so I can do things and get more videos done, ideally. But we're going to be looking at peppering in between Nier, the original Nier, for Xbox 360. Yes, I know there's a new version coming out, but it's also a different focal character, and while the story itself doesn't change a huge amount, I'm also dirt-ass poor, so I try not to spend money on something I already have unless it's good or there's major changes. But if there are, hey, there's another thing, probably. Maybe. Who knows? But I'll probably be peppering that with gameplay from Resident Evil 2 Remake, since I seem to be in a remakey mood, and eventually on to Resident Evil 3 Remake, which I can thank a wonderful person named Sunshine for helping me close the deal on. So, folks, take care, be good to each other, and hopefully I see you back next video. If you liked it, subscribe, and if you want to see more content from me and want to know when it drops, I already said subscribe, didn't I? Hit the like, but then subscribe. Yeah, that's the thing. I'm an idiot. I'm gonna go now and probably cry in a corner for a while. Take care, y'all.